Hi everybody. It has been a minute since I've been on here. I don't think YouTube's gonna become a regular thing if I'm honest, but who knows, maybe I'm wrong. But this is the first video I have done in a long time, and it's a very important one, and one that I honestly didn't even think I would be sharing ever. But that is my testimony of coming from New Age back to Christianity. Of course, I didn't even think I would be here today after my descent into New Age, but I didn't even think I would be making this video today, even after, coming back to God and Jesus and all of that. And that was really because, honestly, I was a little bit embarrassed because, as I will kind of tell you, I've got my iPad here, by the way. I'm looking at it for notes because there's a lot I want to say, but mostly because I was just embarrassed, honestly. I come from a whole line of Christian pastors. My grandma and granddad were Christian pastors, my parents, and it just kind of felt a little bit embarrassing to admit even after the fact, mostly because I really felt like I was practicing sort of a Christianity 2.0 or Christianity, like ascended Christianity that the church didn't want us to know about. And I think it was just felt a little bit shameful to admit, honestly. I really felt like I really had to make this video. And so I just started writing everything, and so here we are. So that's what we're doing today. It's gonna be a very long video, so go grab a beverage, go grab a snack. I just want to preface this too by saying in no way is this designed to incite any sort of fear or put anybody down or anything like that. That is definitely not my intention today, but I do want to share the entirety of my story with all of the truth and facts and everything I experienced, not with any sort of intention behind it, just sharing. So I will start with my story from the very beginning, which actually starts before I was born. As I mentioned earlier, I come from a line of Christian pastors. My grandparents, my parents, Christianity goes as far back as my grandparents. Really where their ministry began was they were on vacation, a little farm basically. We're listening to a church meeting on a tape, and the Spirit of God just filled the room, and so they basically fell on the floor and started crying. Obviously, like when the Spirit of God comes really strongly, it's just sort of an automatic response. From that point on, they just went on this whole journey with God, so many miraculous ways in their ministry. I mean, like miraculous healings. My mom grew up around that. She actually ended up moving to a bigger city in Australia and became a part of a church there. That's where she met my dad. And then my mom and dad got married. They ended up moving to the US for a church plant. And then that's where they had me. My parents were pastors for a big part of my life. And because of that, I grew up in the church and around a lot of, different expressions of Christianity. When I was 14 is really when I think, everybody who grows up in the church kind of at one point, you're kind of on, autopilot. And then for the first time, you really understand what you're a part of and you make the decision for yourself. I ended up actually joining the youth group at my church and getting involved there. I had a great group of friends and community, and I actually met my husband there, which is fun. He's also a third generation Christian. The thing is though, is like I didn't really fully have a revelation of who God was. Like I was very much on autopilot. I knew that God was obviously creator God. I knew the gospel and all of that, but I didn't really didn't really have a full grasp on it, and was just going to church and doing what I had always seen my family do, which was my parents, which was just like serve the church, build the church, and that to me felt like what Christianity was. The craziest thing is that I was still experiencing a very strong presence. I didn't need Christianity to have a full influence on my mind and thought structures and thought patterns to actually still experience the presence, which I think something I could never ignore. Even in my stint with New Age, it was always in the back of my mind. It's like a tangible presence that you experience. It's apart from the religious teachings, like it's apart from the teachings that you feel that, and I think that is a very interesting thing. To me, God really felt like, I would say, like 3 specific things at that point in my life. And number one was obviously what I think a lot of people experience, especially when they grow up in church and kind of immersed in youth culture, depending on who the youth leader is and all of that. But to me, God, first and foremost, was like the authoritarian. I don't know what kind of what motivates it to be like the core of all the teaching, because that's certainly not the core of the gospel, to be perfect. But sometimes it feels that way, especially in youth group. What the result of this was, and what I kind of started to feel maybe unconsciously, and what I think a lot of people do feel, is that I started to build a little bit of resentment for God, because I felt like I couldn't be a unique individual because of those teachings. It's very easy to equate surrendering to God as becoming a shell of yourself. Like, I can't want anything in life. I have to give up everything. I just don't think that that is where surrender comes from. Like, that mentality doesn't actually produce authentic surrender. I think surrender to God, to me now, just as an aside, looks more to me like shedding the things that I didn't even know were inauthentic to me, that I've picked up from culture or from even the church, or picked up from all of the things that I have experienced, that sometimes we can become inauthentic versions of ourselves in order to be loved, to be protected, to be seen, you know, all of these sorts of things. And ultimately, I think surrender to God is coming back to the most authentic version of yourself in order to find yourself and be fully fulfilled within yourself. That's not becoming a shell of yourself. So that being number one, that God was like sort of an authoritarian figure. And then number two really was that all God really wanted to be involved in with me was evangelizing. And then third was building the church. To me, these were the only three ways that God was working in my life, and that his involvement was really restricted to that. And I think that's really where the beginning of the schism, that's where the schism in the foundation started. And that's ultimately why I ended up leaving the faith, even though I didn't know that that was why in the beginning. Then I had my life, which was like all my day-to-day activities, my self-care, my job. All of those things were just stuff that I did. So fast forward to when I was 17, I listened to a sermon from a pastor by the name of Judah Smith, and it completely rocked my world. For the first time, showed me like what the true love of God was, and that was a complete revelation for me. In his sermon, he talked about how when you believe in Jesus, which he gives you the belief to believe in him, that it covers all sins past, present, and future. And that for me was a huge relief, because I didn't even realize that I actually believed that every time I committed a sin, I had to pray for salvation again. And that was really a moment where I just really started to understand for the first time what the peace that surpasses all understanding is, because there really was so much less fear. I had so much peace during that time, so much peace. And that was really like I didn't know it at the time, but that would really be like a hallmark for like my future journey, that I would look back on and go, oh yeah, like there's something special about that. Soon after that, I started to discover a lot more about myself. I actually found the whole world of holistic healing and holistic health for ways to actually heal my cystic acne that I had been dealing with for years and years. That was what kind of led me to the holistic health and functional health community, which I'm so thankful for. It really, truly, in so many ways, that was really a pivotal moment and transformative moment for the rest of my life. But I still really saw it, of course, because it's not church, I really still saw it as separate. And that is kind of, it's funny to me now, but I really did see it as something that God didn't really involve himself. So I continued learning and researching about holistic health, and I'm still doing that. That's my job really now. I went to esthetician school because of my passion for skin and my own healing. That is obviously, this is a whole different story in itself, my career journey. There's a lot that I'm leaving out here that is kind of important, but just for the video's length's sake, I'm gonna leave it out. I was 19 when I started esthetician school. I actually ended up getting pregnant. I had my daughter, got married, and then right after that, we actually decided that we were gonna move to Ohio. At that point, I kind of ended up doing a little bit of research writing on the side after I graduated school. Started an Instagram where I was doing something similar. I really just had such a passion for holistic health and also a passion for helping people, and Instagram and sharing the information that I had learned that had been so insightful and impactful to me. Really just a way for me to express myself there. And so that's what I did. I started building my Instagram, and it got really to the point where I was kind of like, you know, I could either go down the influencer route or I could start my own business. I really didn't feel super connected to the influencer route. That's why I ended up just kind of deciding to start my own business, even though I have done a little bit of influencer work over the years. Ended up making a course and also ended up testing a formulation for a potential product that I was gonna make, which is actually what began my skincare line now, which is my skincare line Sauna House. But at the time I was just testing the formulation, and I got such great results with the formulation, and my family got such amazing results with the formulation that I was like, oh, this is really an incredible thing. I had been dealing with cystic acne for years and years and years, and nothing was moving the needle, including the food that I was eating, which was a huge surprise to me, but obviously I know now it's all part of the plan. I was like, this is really something that's very promising. I had the product that I was, you know, formulating, and then the course, and one night I was in my bathroom and God for the first time really spoke to me, knew it was his voice, basically told me like, you think it's about the course, but it's actually about the products. At that point I was like, okay, clearly like the course is a no-go, like let me, you know, lean into the product here that I've already had such amazing results with. So clearly this is the route that I'm supposed to go. And you know, it's kind of funny now because it's like how I didn't put two and two together and go, God is clearly sending me down a path like this way. And yet I was like, I still didn't get the picture that he wanted to be involved not only in that, but like in every aspect of my life. It just didn't click. Now it does. Started Sauna House after that. People got such incredible results with the product, and I mean, what has happened because of that is just insane. So many, you know, amazing testimonials, and I'm like constantly in awe of the whole thing. And my business has changed my life, and it has been the catalyst for my spiritual transformation in ways that is like really incredibly, yeah, crazy. But this is, interestingly enough, despite how miraculous of an experience that was, this is actually where my descent into New Age began. So we had that amazing initial success, testimonials start pouring in, and I really start to feel the pressure of like, I have to do something with this. I have to, you know, I have to push forward, like make things happen here with customers too. I want to be able to continually serve your customers in more and more and better ways, and that was really my heart. And don't really know where it started, but I really think deep down I had this idea that God hated success. I think in a way I kind of shut myself off from his involvement there because I was almost ashamed to admit to him that I wanted to be successful. And that I look back now and I'm like, yeah, like that's where things started to snap. I really tried to justify it in my own heart and mind by going like, this is a business for people, like I want this to be accessible, I want this to be benefit people, and I want to really serve people and serve community. And that was 100% true, but it was like I was trying to justify it to God, and yet like I was still putting up this wall. You don't want to be involved in this because I have this like secret drive for like selfish success, and I feel ashamed of that, so I don't want to let you in on that. That was really where I began to look elsewhere because obviously I still needed help figuring out how to be successful. I still need to make this happen, so I have to look somewhere. And so I consumed a lot of Instagram growth content and business content and all of that, and then eventually stumbled upon manifestation through TikTok. And because of where I was in my heart, been groomed essentially by a lot of these false beliefs, I really was groomed to be really susceptible to manifestation and honestly to New Age as a whole. When I found manifestation, it was really positioned to me as, wow, like this is the thing that Jesus and God always wanted you to know, but the church is kept from you to keep you small, to keep you contained, to keep you controlled. That was really what cemented it for me. This is why I feel like God doesn't want to be a part of my, my business. This is me like reclaiming like who God really wants me to be. Now, the belief that I have is that God does want me to be successful. It's just in a very different way that manifestation presents it. It's not the same pursuit of success that manifestation teaches. I think that's the best way to say it. It's a very subtle difference that I think can be honestly in a way very sinister, because it is such a subtle difference that you almost don't even know it's there. But as you progress further down, you start to feel the difference because of what it actually is. But I will get more into that later. But that was basically where everything started. When I find something that strikes a chord in me, I want to learn everything about it. So I dove into all different sorts of things, listened to a bunch of Abraham Hicks videos, got into a membership, was doing a lot of the hypnotic style guided meditations to get rid of my limiting beliefs around money, some visualization, different podcasts from different spiritual people. I wasn't super into it yet. I didn't really have a manifestation practice down, but I was just kind of experimenting. And really where things started to seem like they were working for me was I wrote down on a piece of paper, I wrote down the amount of income that I wanted every month from my business. So when they said put it on your mirror so that every day you can actually start rewiring your subconscious to move towards this. So that's what I did. And then a couple of months later, I actually did hit that specific income goal from my business that month. I had a video that went semi-viral on TikTok. And because of that, you know, basically ended up hitting that specific goal. Of course, I'm here like, oh my gosh, manifestation is real, which it is real. I was convinced that this was my liberation, my freedom. And then this is where things kind of start to get weird that I didn't recognize from the get-go. In fact, I actually thought it was God. The week after I hit that income goal, so the mirror that I had that piece of paper on, I had the mirror on a set of drawers in my bedroom, resting on the wall behind it. And it was like a pretty deep dresser. So it's not like, you know, it was like a really small dresser or anything like that. I had never had that mirror up there for months and had never had anything happen to it. But I was downstairs one day, nobody was upstairs, and the mirror toppled over somehow with nobody up there. I thought, oh, this is God telling me, like, yeah, like, keep going, like, I'm with you. And then the next day, I had a vision board that I had made that was propped up very top shelf of a set of shelves that I had downstairs in my office. That had fallen off the top shelf too somehow. It was pushed super far back, just like my mirror was. Meanwhile, like, nobody else ever had anything fall down off of dressers or anything like that in the house. It just seemed to be only the stuff that was connected to my manifestation things, which is very interesting. A couple months go by, and you know, we're still maintaining that same goal, and I'm like, yeah, like the energy is so behind it and all of this stuff. But then over time, I just kind of realized that it was stagnating, and I was just like, you know, this is so interesting. Because of course, immediately after that, I set a new goal, because why not? If this is possible, why not go to the next level? It was like, kind of like, why is it not working now? Like, that's kind of weird. And obviously now looking back, I can clearly see like, oh, girl, like that was not about manifestation at all. It wasn't about success at all. It was all really about manifesting control and power. That's really what I was trying to do with manifestation. The reason why I was upset was because I felt like I was losing the power and control that I had, like it wasn't working anymore. I remember very vividly, we had just moved to Arizona, so happy to be finally in somewhere that was like sunny again, you know, because Ohio was super cold in the wintertime. So happy. And then I remember just like sitting outside one day, and then all of a sudden I just felt like this feeling of dread like come over me, and I couldn't figure it out. And I was like, why am I feeling this now? Like, we just got here, I'm so happy to be here, why do I feel horrible? That is actually what first got me into astrology, because I stumbled on a video and then I realized, oh my gosh, it's an eclipse. The eclipse is making me feel this way. And that was really what got me like on that path, that I was like, oh my gosh, I've never considered astrology. You know, they teach you that astrology, you know, works with your manifestations and all of that. So I was kind of diving a lot into astrology to better understand how to utilize it for manifestation, reading Abraham Hicks books, more books on manifestation, more new age style books that really taught about like the laws of the universe and the hidden truths of the universe, and very like cosmic stuff. Made me a little bit dissociative. Kind of just saw it as like, you know, a test to see how, you know, much you can handle. Learned about Christ consciousness and 5D ascension, about ascended masters. Learned, oh my gosh, Jesus is not really the Christ. He's actually just an ascended master, just like all of these other people, showing us what it means to have a full realization of your power, and that you can manifest, and that Jesus taught manifestation, and that Jesus was a master manifester. That's really like where I really started to go deeper. I started listening to guided meditations with things like the light language, 7 planetary rays, and that God is just expressed through archetypes, and that all the archetypes are represented in tarot and zodiac and astrology, and you know, symbols and, you know, occult symbols that are really just an expression of a certain part of God. And it was just like all of this stuff that just got so muddled together. It's just so easily gets a hold on you, really convinces you like that where you're going is the truth, and uses a lot of Christian kind of themes to get you desensitized to really deep occult things. And that's one of the craziest parts of it. Honestly, at that point, that was really where things started to get really weird. I was experiencing like these constant highs from new information and knowledge and finding the truth. I'm fulfilling my reason for coming to Earth, but objectively, my life was actually getting worse. Fighting with my husband more than ever, and I was just getting disenchanted with my life. I couldn't be present. I was finding it really hard to be present. The weirdest thing was that I was feeling extremely, like when the high of the knowledge would die down, I was feeling extremely anxious, and that feeling of dread and doom that I started to get was just anytime I would get down off that high of learning something new. It was just there, constantly kind of abating it by going deeper, consuming a bunch of new age content on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram, and that was just kind of how I was abating that feeling. I didn't notice it at the time, but that's really where everything started to go downhill. Then it became so obvious that I couldn't ignore it anymore. Random accidents happening in the house, a bunch of stuff happened to our car, like inexplicably, like just a bunch of things went wrong with our car. It happened so much that it was very clear this is not just like a coincidence anymore. Like this, you know, shipments for our business getting lost and damaged and things getting printed wrong, and it's just so many things that I was like, I was so unbelievably overwhelmed. Probably the worst thing was my health really took a toll. My health has always been like a weak point in my life. My health just started to go downhill. Like I was getting really bad fatigue. I had to sleep sometimes 12 hours a day. Like I was just so tired. I was waking up at random points in the night. Really hard for me to stay on top of everything that I had to do. I was doing so much and yet I was getting nowhere. It was a really weird experience. And even though I was getting traction on TikTok and Instagram for the first time in a long time, and I had been really in the previous months been very intentional about manifesting that, but anytime I would get, reach a goal, it was like I would get sick. In 2022, I think I got sick maybe like 6 or 8 times. I really felt like the answer that my life was trying to show me, the astrological interpretations were confirming, was that I just needed to change me. It's been this whole journey to get me to break through the last little thing that I need to be able to break through that ceiling. And really that's where I felt that it was me and my identity that needed to change, and I needed to reinvent myself, and that was gonna help my social media, and then that social media was gonna help me break through the ceiling that was on my business. I just started to completely reinvent myself. So I created this more palatable version of me that was algorithm friendly and had all the vision boards for it. The crazy thing is it worked, right? I ended up gaining 150,000 followers over the course of the year after aggressively reinventing myself and becoming this new version of me that was always the me that was in there. That my life was trying to show me, like, this is really you. I became that, and look, the proof is in the pudding, like 150,000 followers. Of course, I was still authentic. There was a lot of authentic parts of me that were involved. I mean, I run my business, I felt very grounded in my values. The way that I run my business, I really felt passionate about making it accessible, putting people over profits, like that, and my passion for health and wellness, and was all intermingled with that. It was very strategic and it wasn't natural. It was this manufactured version that was inspired by New Age. Again, there's not that there's anything wrong with reinventing yourself, but it was to achieve an external result. And I think that when you are taking something as important as your identity and manufacturing it in order to achieve an external result, it's very easy for your new identity to be rooted in external things rather than a true natural expression of who you are. And that was really where I ended up finding myself. Despite the success that I was getting on social media, the metrics of success that I was finding, my success was measurable, but the chaos didn't stop. And that was where I was like, okay, this is kind of weird. The energetic ceiling didn't feel like it had lifted, but things just continued. Things were breaking, packages getting lost, and that sense of impending doom and dread that was like there when all the noise went away, that it was there. That was probably the scariest thing. I just didn't know why it wasn't going away. Like, why, when this was the thing that my life was trying to show me, all of these events, all of this chaos, all of these astrological alignments, all confirming that this is the path that I'm going on, and now I've found the answer, and okay, I'm acting on it, I'm putting it into action, and practically, as long as I complete this, the need for that chaos goes away, except it didn't stop. Now I was becoming very acutely aware of that anxiety and that looming like feeling of dread. Like, okay, what is that? Because that's been here this whole time, thinking that it was just there because it was trying to show me where I was out of alignment. And yet here I was thinking I was the most aligned that I had ever been. It still wasn't going away. I'm still pushing through, going, well, maybe I just need to build some resilience. And thankfully, the fulfillment that I was getting from running my business, my family, was really what kept me going. What we do and how we help people and all of that is, has never changed, and still loving doing that. I also felt this feeling of like, well, that's not enough. I get to this point where my hands up in the air and I'm like, you know, like I don't know what to do anymore. Find a piece of information that enlightens me and makes me understand why I'm experiencing chaos and struggle in my life, but then I act on that piece of knowledge and then nothing happens. And it was just enough times of that I was just like, there's got to be something I'm missing. A last-ditch effort to really look deeper. I had bought a popular new age book, but had never read it. For whatever reason, I don't feel comfortable sharing the name of the book, but maybe you will recognize it by some of the content that I mentioned. I had this intuitive idea to go and read it. It was all about pain and pleasure and manifestation. And I figured, well, I'm experiencing more pain than ever before. Maybe this is what, maybe all this has been leading up to this moment for me to read this book. The author had kind of professed this book as an alternative manifestation technique. If all the love and light positivity stuff didn't work for you, maybe that can't take me, that type of manifestation can't take me to this next level. She kind of sounded like she was speaking directly to me. And so I was like, okay, well, this sounds like this technique better fits me. And so I read the book, implemented some of the technique. The whole book is about recognizing the pain in your life as pleasure, because that's what your soul has always wanted to experience it as anyway. So when you awaken to the fact that that's what you're actually supposed to feel pleasure, and when you're going through pain, that's really when you become a master of your own life. She kind of had said that, yeah, like once you start to receive pleasure from it, then that's when the chaos can actually, or the pain can actually stop, because it's served its purpose in your life, and now it doesn't have to teach you that pain anymore. Once after I read the book, I obviously felt less resistance to the chaos in my life, right? Except that months into the practice, things just were getting worse. So because things weren't getting better, but she was the first person that I felt had kind of understood my obstacles with like traditional manifestation techniques, I actually was like, well, I wonder what other content she has. Like maybe there's something else that she has, because she had a lot of other things. That book was just the surface level of everything in my mind, right? Like I'm thinking like archetypes and occult symbols and astrology and zodiacs, and all of that stuff is just a representation of all the aspects of God, and each archetype and each tarot card and each occult symbol all represents a different aspect of God, and it's just God communicating himself through these mediums that are the hidden knowledge and the hidden truth that the church doesn't want you to know about. It makes you too powerful, and you know, so that's where I'm at, right? That's where my brain is at. And I look deeper into her stuff, and I'm kind of entertaining it because of where my mind is at. I realized, oh wow, like this kind of the deeper you go with this, the more intense it gets. She did a lot of like sex magic. She would make altars, the god of love, the god of money. That was her way of manifesting certain things. Really quickly turned from your subconscious beliefs to then, hey, if you do magic, and you do these magical rituals, it actually gets you completely liberated from your subconscious mind so that it actually works. This is really the most effective way. And that's where I just kind of had this epiphany, and I really believe it was God protecting me now. But I was just like, if this is where it goes, like I was reading about testimonials from people who had mothers who had left their children because it was like a shame initiation that they were going through, that would then, you know, this was really their path, and they had to embody being perceived as a bad mom, and that was part of their soul's journey. This is where this goes. Like, this is not, I don't think this is for me, you know, because if this is the people that are the most enlightened, this is where all the paths lead. This is the real root of everything about manifestation. All has roots in people like Aleister Crowley, but he basically taught all about bringing change in your external environment in accordance with your will, which is what manifestation is, right? The roots of that practice are deeply intertwined with getting assistance from spirits on the earth in order to make that happen. That's where I broke away in my heart, broke away from New Age, and was just like, this isn't for me. It was kind of a weird moment because I had broken away from going deeper and broken away from that pursuit of knowledge, and was feeling like this dread, that anxiety still, but it was like this little inkling of hope started to bubble up in me. And I was like, I committed myself to that path, not being afraid of that pursuit of truth. And it didn't work out. Nothing inevitably led to the true goal that I had, which was more happiness, more security, more, joy in my life. Now that means that there's an answer somewhere else. Everything changed in December of last year. My aunt and uncle, who are from Australia, they're pastors. They came to visit us, came all the way halfway across the world, on vacation here, and came to visit us as part of that. I don't think I mentioned this in the beginning, but I probably should have, that nobody in my family knew. Maybe God told them in some way. At the very least, I had not. It wasn't like they were coming here or trying to get me back on track or anything like that. So anyway, that aside, it's important context, right? We caught up a lot, we talked a lot, and then the last night we were all hanging out by a fire pit, and my uncle, who has a crazy testimony, I had heard little bits and pieces about his testimony, but I had never actually heard it from him in person. And when he shared it with me, like all of the details, it was like a switch turned on in me. It was all so perfectly ordered. It all made sense. Each step after each step seemed perfectly ordered and had a continuity and a linearity to it that I was like, it really makes you consider that like the Jesus in the Christian church is real, that he wasn't just this ascended master, that, there was bunches of them on earth at any point in time. The linearity and the continuity in his story was something that I never experienced in New Age. Every time I felt like my life was showing me something through the chaos, that there was a lesson to be learned, I would implement that, and then nothing would change, nothing would happen, nothing would evolve, nothing would get better. There was no progress. His testimony was such a stark contrast on a mental level, on a mind level. That was really where things started to shift. Even my husband didn't really talk about it, but we both started to have these sort of this parallel experience where we started to open up to God again. We got sucked into a current, basically, is kind of like what it felt like. This is really where things really started to speed up, because over the next few weeks after they visited, all of a sudden my mind was just getting constantly flooded with all of these memories I had in church, like the supernatural stuff, like the Spirit of God filling room, miraculous healings and prophecies that had all been weirdly accurate. That was just like, yeah, there is something about this that I can't deny. Just started to feel pulled towards God again, and started to listen to Christian content for the first time in a long time. And slowly but surely over the next few months, God really started to shift my belief towards God, like the God that I had met in the church again. And real thing that encouraged me on this path was that feeling of dread, that anxiety, that feeling of looming doom finally went away, and I had peace, tangible peace, for the first time since I had come into New Age. The anxiety and the dread and the doom that enlightenment couldn't fix, it could only abate it and, keep it at bay. That like even interpreting my life circumstances and trying to figure out what it was showing me, and then the answers that felt like they were coming, and then implementing them and nothing changing, especially not the anxiety, and that feeling that I couldn't explain, that I couldn't link to anything, that going away and feeling peace for the first time, that was really the kicker for me. Like that was where I really started, was like, yeah, this is the truth. Like this, because how else, And then something really crazy happened. My husband and I, within the span of a week, him first was asleep and then heard somebody call his name very audibly. Quiet, but still loud enough voice and clear, like very, very clear, called his name. And he woke up, went out into our kitchen, and because we have family that lives with us, and was trying to see if somebody had been calling his name, because it was that clear and audible. Nobody was awake, and he was like, okay, that was kind of weird. He told me about it, and a couple days later, same thing happened to me. He kind of offhandedly said it, but it wasn't an offhanded experience at all. He was like, well, maybe that's God calling us back, and I was like, oh yeah, maybe, Absolutely was. Those experiences that I had was kind of like still in an in-between, like didn't fully know if there was something in New Age that I was supposed to bring with me, or if I was supposed to go full force Jesus, Christianity again, or if I was supposed to make some hodgepodge of my own spirituality. So I was just like, well, you know, I don't really know what to do, but God, if this is you, if the God in the Christian church, you are the one that's calling me to go down this path again, like change the desires in my heart so that they're in alignment with whatever path I'm supposed to be on. And within just a few days, it was like this slow but sure kind of trickling in of just this joy. I woke up one morning and I just felt this complete love for my life, like exactly the way it was. In New Age, I had pockets of gratitude and experiencing like these random highs of, you know, achievement and knowledge and enlightenment, but that would quickly fade. I had no other explanation for it other than, well, I asked God to change me, to change my heart, and that's exactly what happened. And it was just so supernatural that I was just like, yeah, you're real. But it also made me realize, like, I have no idea how to make myself happy. I have no idea, you know, how to actually find a path for myself that is fulfilling, because all of my attempts in manifestation and New Age to, you know, find my path and find success never inevitably made me more happy. It just made me more anxious, more fearful, made things feel in my life more chaotic. And that's where I was just like, I don't know how to make myself happy. I don't know how to forge my path. Like in that moment, I realized how trapped I was, because at the root of manifestation was manipulating my environment according to my will to feel happier and safer and more secure. But how did I actually even know that that path was leading to those things, that it was leading to happiness, that it was leading to fulfillment? Like, it was such a humbling moment, because I realized I don't even know. I don't have any proof that the path that I'm, you know, forging, that the me that I'm creating, that the identity that I'm forming for myself, I have no real proof that that is going to actually make me happy. How could I actually say that my will is in service of my highest good? My will that I am putting into action, putting into plan, is actually in service of my highest good. Really, all that my manifestation was based on was seeing people on social media that were successful, that looked happy, that looked like they were kind of like my vibe. How did I know that these people were actually happy? Like, not saying that, oh yeah, influencers online are just coming off like they're happy, but they're really not, because I don't think that that's true at all. But I do know that it made me realize it's not an infallible guarantee. I am not cut out for this job to figure out exactly what my life needs to look like in order for me to be happy and then manifest that. Like, that was such a heavy burden to carry. I realized, like, no wonder I'm feeling anxiety. No wonder I'm feeling like this sense of dread. Honestly, like, maybe you feel different, but I honestly don't feel like I could have ever gained the perspective necessary. You know, like, if my perception was so limited and that's why I couldn't actually manifest a life that made me happy, the perception is the issue. Except that I really do not believe that there's anything I could have done to expand my perspective and perception enough, experiencing other people's lives and the way theirs plays out, and consuming content and experiencing the world. I can't ever really see how that was going to bring me to the perspective necessary to be able to make an accurate, informed decision on how my life should unfold and where I should be directing my manifestations. Like, no matter how many books I read, I mean, I read dozens of books. I spent at least $1,000 just on books alone. And, you know, not even counting like all of the moon circles, all of the podcasts that I listened to, all of the astrological interpretations that I watched, how many tarot card readings that I watched online that seemed like they were so specific to me and were reading my exact situation. I had something playing all the time. It was all day, every day that I was committed to this. And I still didn't gain the perspective necessary in order to know how to make myself happy. Like, I had changed my idea of what success looked like so many times over. And not that I think that there's anything wrong with that, especially when you're in your 20s, things evolve. But it's just like, do we really want to put our energy, cement our path and our manifestations towards a specific end, only to have our idea of happiness change soon after that? Like, it was just such a huge weight of my own limitations on my shoulders all the time, and it was just a constant searching and never finding, and that just felt like a prison. If I invest any more time into this, I don't know if I can dig myself back out. And that was where I was just like, you know what? I really feel like only God knows. Only God can have the breadth of perception necessary for us to really be confident in where we're going and the path that we're on. And even just in a few weeks of me turning my heart back to God, the God that I met in church, just a few weeks of that, and my peace and my joy had returned with no effort on my part. And so I was like, well, if God can do that, I don't have to figure it all out then. If he's gonna do that, then surely he's gonna lead me. There was a logic and reason element to me coming to that conclusion of like, well, here's the benefits I've experienced in just a short amount of time, and here's all the chaos that happened. So clearly this is looks like the better option. But there was also a supernatural element to it. A little dark. Hopefully I can finish this before it like fully gets dark. But it's actually a better like lighting situation in here now. Anyway, after this point is really where, again, toyed with that idea of like the hodgepodge kind of situation. The epiphanies I was having, the conclusions I was coming to, and everything that was happening, I really felt God impress upon me like to throw them away. I didn't know straight away if it was just me wanting to just kind of start with a brand new blank slate because I was uncomfortable with the kind of in-between and wanted to fully throw myself one way or the other. So I kind of just sat with it because I was like, well, I don't want to be motivated by an all or nothing mentality. You know, if I have to sit in the discomfort of like the in-between, you know, being in between, like, and that's part of my journey, like I want to honor that. Then what really got me was, you know, my husband we were driving to the gym one morning. He was like, you know, I don't know why, I just feel like God is like telling me like we should throw out like all the crystals and everything. And I was like, oh, it's so crazy that you say that, because I felt like he was telling me that too. And like as soon as I said that, there was a dragonfly in that flew out of the truck. There was a truck in front of us. It flew out of the truck bed in front of us and like right at us, and then just like went over the top of our car. And we both looked at each other and we were like, oh, okay, message received. Like, you know, a thank you. That was very clear. We went home and we threw everything away, and it was just like I felt this weight lift off of me when I started to throw everything away. That was like where in my heart of hearts I fully denounced New Age and witchcraft. And I like, it feels weird to say witchcraft, because for so long I just genuinely believed it was like the God I had always known and the Christianity that I had been a part of. Like this was just the real truth of what that was. So it feels so crazy because I just didn't know. I've had a couple of like pulls towards like things like astrology, not recently, but there, even after I threw away that, I was kind of like, oh well, maybe astrology. But at best it's just another voice in your ear that can just feel very confusing. And that's why inevitably I was just like, well, at a bare minimum, this really hasn't really helped me. I just want to spend my life feeling clarity and not confusion, and I don't feel like it's necessary. Once I got there, that's really where God has really, his direction and guidance, and like even speaking to me, what he's kind of adjusting in my life and what he's kind of guiding me towards, and the insight that he's giving me, it's gotten so much clearer and louder, more frequent. Not like an audible voice, it's just like a feeling. It's all been with no effort on my part. Again, it's just like just these moments where I'm doing nothing, or I'm like in the shower and I'm in bed, you know, before bed, or I'm up early in the morning. But also like miracles have happened. Expenses that we didn't know how we were gonna pay. Unexpected money showing up in the most random ways. My sleep has gotten so much better. Like my fatigue has drastically improved. All of this forward momentum, all of these amazing things. It's like, okay, there's a clear correlation here. When I had first started to explore the idea of becoming a Christian again, I was really afraid to watch like the New Age to Jesus testimonies. By the way, there are people flooding out of New Age. I think because, you know, there was a mass kind of migration towards it through TikTok and just the accessibility of that, especially because a lot of young people are on there, and I had been afraid to listen to them. I had never listened to one ever, at any of those stories in my entire life. Certainly not in my stint with New Age, and you know, not really until recently. I didn't know people were having the same experience of chaos and anxiety and like emotional turmoil and sleep issues like happening in their life. But when I started to read them, it was like, oh my gosh, it wasn't just like, this is a sort of like universal experience. It feels like everybody had the same story, like the same at a baseline. Everybody was dealing with more anxiety, more fear, existential dread than ever before. Even worse, some people were dealing with like demonic interactions, people like coming and choking them in the middle of the night. They all had one theme in common, was that either Jesus came to them and visited them and they had an encounter with him, or they literally saved them from a demonic encounter that they were having. They all knew that there was a love, that there was a power, that there was an authority that Jesus had, that even if had never known of him before, that they knew it in that moment. New Age practitioners, spiritual practitioners, all the way to people who are deep into the occult. It's all sorts of people at all different levels coming to Jesus. It's not just people who dabbled in a little bit of manifestation and decided, oh, it's not working for me, so I need to go to Christianity or whatever. Like, it's, people like Kat Von D, like people that was one that really, really impacted me personally, because I was like, she was overtly into witchcraft and like, that whole thing, like pentagrams and the whole thing. And that's really what has given me so much faith. Like, there is such a linearity and a continuity and a clear ordered, order of events in my life now that just really feel like they confirm God's direction and, involvement in my life. Not just that, it's also the miracles that have happened and the things that I've experienced, proven to me beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is the real deal. I think I should speak to the fact that, like, you might hear my story, you see a completely alternative explanation for why I ended up in the place where I'm at. You might think that all the chaos that happened in New Age was like coincidentally alongside my time in New Age, but it wasn't related, and maybe you were in survival mode, and then when you decided you were going to throw your hands up and, surrender to life, that was really when you found, peace, and it wasn't really about God at all or leaving New Age at all, that it was just about, you leaving survival mode. And maybe you think I was just like doing New Age all wrong, that there was a piece that I was clearly missing. If you look at my story, let's say you remove all the miraculous stuff that happened, right? Like, at a bare minimum, I am far happier, far more joyful, far more peaceful than I ever was in New Age. And it is with drastically more simplicity. I'm, not constantly trying to figure out whether my problems are coming from whether I'm not in my feminine enough, or I'm too in my masculine, or whether my life feels chaotic because it's a Mercury retrograde or a Venus retrograde or a Mars retrograde, or because it's Mars square Pluto, or because I'm watching Western astrology videos and not Vedic astrology videos, and Vedic astrology videos are actually the truth. They're the real true astrology. And whether it's not, because I'm not enjoying my pain enough, like my soul deep down wants to, and I just need to enjoy my pain more, and there's more pleasure to be derived from my pain before the pain goes away, because I'm not, thinking about a thought enough, or visualizing enough, affirming enough. I don't have an affirmation that is best tailored enough to my situation for my subconscious to actually believe it. Whether it's because I didn't manifest on the new moon, or whether it's because I need to pay for a hypnotic session for somebody to get rid of the subconscious beliefs that I'm contending with for me. I need to find a new spiritual coach, or I need to buy a new course, or I need someone to open the Akashic records for me, or because I need a specific crystal, or I need to watch another tarot reading, or maybe because I need to actually have my own tarot cards because they need to attune to my energy rather than attune to the energy of the person who's doing the reading, or because I'm just not going deep enough. That was everything that I was having to consider at all times. Now it's like I can just be sitting, I can just be taking a shower, or I can be laying in my bed. I just have to have a listening ear and then take action and then watch for the confirmation. It always, always, always comes in ways that can't happen apart from his involvement. Like, it's always in a way that it's like, yeah, I couldn't have done that. And again, like, just the clear orderedness and the clarity and no confusion, and just having forward momentum in a clear, linear way. I do believe there is for sure a benefit in travel, in experiences and healing modalities, like different forms of therapy and different things like that, that are all 1,000% beneficial. And I believe God does use those things. What feels really unique to this experience for me is that God meets me any place, anywhere, anytime, and it gives me exactly what I need to know for where I'm at in my life. No more, no less. No more so that it confuses me, and no less so that it leaves me, behind. Of course, I'm not an expert. I certainly don't proclaim to be an expert, and I definitely acknowledge the Christian church has hurt a lot of people. That was one of my biggest hesitations in going back to Christianity. It is so clear how the church has hurt people, and I've even it's never happened to me personally, but I have witnessed it with people very close to me, how pastors and deeply hurt people on a level that I know is very unique to the church, because it cuts right to the core. When it cuts deep. As true as that is, I also, through my experience with New Age, I've also seen that it's very much that same degree of abuse, the control, the financial exploitation, the sexual exploitation even, control, manipulation, all of those things. The same issues that we often see in Christianity are very much present in New Age, especially when you get into things like gatherings. Like the sexual exploitation in New Age is because it's enlightenment. It's, they present it as enlightenment and all of these things. It is very real and most certainly just as damaging. There's no doubt that things need to change in the Christian church, 1000%, but it's not exclusive to the church, is what I've realized. Like, it's really a corruption problem, especially corruption in leadership, that eventually manifests itself as all of these other things. And in saying that, I also know that there are people who may be on a journey towards God or coming back to God that do not feel comfortable in the church. It's not a safe place for them. And I think that that's 100% warranted, 100% valid. I don't think walking this path back towards God is contingent upon somebody going to a church. I do 100% see the value in a church because I've experienced it myself. A lot of the issues that a lot of us have with Christianity is because of the experiences that we've had in the church. My experience with New Age has shown me that it can very much be present to the same degree. And it's like, even though the church has the ability to harm people, it's like New Age has the potential to harm people. And this is the story of so many people, not just me, that it only brings more anxiety and fear and chaos into your life. That may not be your story, but that is most definitely the story of a lot of people. And that's where I can see, like, even though I can't justify what the church has done in the past and what the church even continues to do in this day and age, I also can't, on that fact alone, say that it's, more harmful than New Age is. I think it's just a people corruption issue. And I also just want to make sure, really drive the point home that, like, especially if you are watching and you are in the New Age and you're practicing, New Age is filled with kind, loving, caring, beautiful people that ultimately their only goal is to make the world a better place. I genuinely believe that I was bringing healing to the world, that I believed that by gathering all this knowledge that I was ascending and my vibration was raising, and because of that I was collectively raising the vibration of the earth, except that I was feeling all this perpetual anxiety and dread, and it wasn't really high vibrational at all. I really do believe that they are still doing a service to the world, and I think that that's why so many people end up in it, is because it appears that way. But the majority of people are doing it because they believe, at the bare minimum, they're liberating themselves and people from shame, and then that's how they're collectively helping the world. I can't emphasize enough, and I can't express enough how genuinely I believe that. I've seen the deepest, darkest hole of New Age, and I've seen that there are still beautiful, loving, caring people there. They genuinely believe that they are doing good for the world. All I can speak to is my experience, and my experience is that New Age did nothing but harm to me. And in a very short period of time, God has transformed all of that supernaturally, changed me, changed my perspective on life, and it parallels so many of the experiences of other people in New Age as well. That's kind of where I'm at now. I don't know what this means for the future. I'm not sure if this kind of video is a one-off. I'm just following what I feel like God is guiding me to do. And I hope this video, no matter where you are, that it benefits you in some way. No matter where you are in your journey, I want to send you all the love in the world. So if you made it to this part, at the end of this video, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you taking the time, no matter where you are. Maybe talk to you soon.